There is a fifth dimension.
A dimension of sound.
Damn it, Frank! We tell him to be quiet. I spilled my hot cup of Uranus again.
A dimension of sight.
Hey, Arch. I'm gonna sock you in the puss.
A dimension of mind.
Nan Adams, is that you?
Next stop, the Twilight Zone.
And what's up, guys? Welcome to the Fifth Dimension of Twilight Zone podcast. I am your host, Nick, as always. I like to say Nick as always because it makes me feel special. We're here once again to talk the Twilight Zone, you know, Rod Serling's famous TV series that premiered in 1959 and still is relevant to today's life and society. But as always, before we begin, we are on audio feeds like Anchor and Google Play Music and Amazon Music and Cornhub Audio Boom, Cornhub and whatever Triv has in her cup, you know, those types of things, iTunes and all that good stuff. Today, guys, gals, we do not have a guest host with us, but you would think maybe Jackie, our main protagonist, could be our guest host because he's by himself for most of this episode outside of another person. And it's an interesting episode to talk about. Maybe one of my favorite episodes we've talked about so far. So anyways, yeah. With that said,
and we haven't even talked about it yet. Holy shit.
Yeah, I know. As Richard Kiley usually says, those voices you hear are, of course, Triv from Trivial Theater, the 2D Anal Cup of Uranus producer, and Jacob, who is part of the Jurassic Park. Actually, that's ironic. I didn't even realize Jacob was wearing a Jurassic Park shirt when I said Richard Kiley because that's from the movie. How you guys doing? How's everything? How's life?
My cup of Uranus isn't full of Uranus anymore. I need a refill.
Oh, geez. Are you now nervous woman in a $6 room or something? $69 room.
Yeah, we leave the welcome to Motel 69 where we leave the red light on for you.
Well, me and George are just over here hanging out doing the podcast.
Did you get rid of Jeff?
Jeff too. Jeff. George is over there. George.
Okay.
George. Right. Yeah.
Jacob,
good,
Trev.
okay.
What?
Jacob, Trev.
Well, this is
Jacob.
bringing me
Dr.
flashbacks
Scott!
to that. It's just,
Rocky. Angela.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Hearing all those people say my name was weird.
I can imagine. I have the
I mean,
full
I know some of them.
uncensored. I have the full uncensored thing if you ever need that. So
Uncensored.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
What needed to be censored?
I mean, you were shirtless at one point, so you know.
I wore a bra part of it.
That is true. That is true. What's worse, being shirtless or having a bra on? I'm not sure.
I have no shame. I don't know.
I know you.
That is the least of the things I put out there into the ether. So
Well, you also walked around with what was it, the troll costume, and it was a little bit tight.
a little bit my ass. It was a lot.
Well, yes,
of it
your
tight.
ass was tight.
Yeah, that everything was. Yeah, the troll
Was
costume,
tight
I
like Tiger.
streaked in the middle of a city street before. There's videos that I don't think can be taken away from the internet right now. Picture, I mean, you know, shame is not my middle name.
We're already going off the rails, ladies and gents.
Oh, we started.
No, we went off the rails many moons ago.
That is true.
I
We
can
went off the rails.
pinpoint
the minute
exactly when it happened.
we.
Exactly.
It might
the
have a
episode.
cat. It may have a cat in it. It may revolve a roller coaster and
That's right.
violent
You know,
death.
I have been all this time taking the brunt of just saying I'm the one who sent all this off the rails. Nope. This motherfucker was off the rails the day that goddamn episode got put as high as it did in this fucking list.
You know, that should be a question that we ask any new co-host that comes on. Like, ask them especially if they know like Twilight Zone, where perchance to dream should be, and then just let Jacob simmer.
If they say anything above, like, I don't know,
42.
167, they can't be on the podcast.
It's episode 195, and there's just a bunch of
there we
dirt.
go.
There's a bunch of darkness and dirt between the last episode and For Chance to Dream.
Yep.
The fever's
Darkness
like,
and dirt,
nope.
where it deserves. Fever can be down there too.
It's in a deep dark hole.
Speaking of deep and dark and holes,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So we're talking about season 2, episode 3 of the Twilight Zone. This is called Nervous Man in a $4 Room. Once again, directed by Douglas Hayes, written by Rod Serling, original score by Jerry Goldsmith. And if you don't recognize the score, just watch a Star Trek movie back in the 80s and you'll definitely recognize the score because it feels like very much like a Jerry Goldsmith Star Trek score or Star Trek. You know what I mean, people. Star Trek.
That thing that is in Star Wars.
Exactly.
The one where they save the fucking whales.
Amen, brother.
That's 6.
I love that episode.
That's 4.
That's 4.
Isn't it?
Is that 4?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was 6?
6 was the
where they go to, like,
undiscovered
prison
country.
Colony. Yeah.
And they kick that monster in the balls, but his balls are actually on his knees.
I mean, that is a good place for balls to be.
Vivica, is it Vivica? Not Vivica Fox. I can't remember who the female. I mean, whatever. I'm going off the rails. I got too much. I know Star Trek and Star Wars. That's right. Exactly. I'm a Trekkie and a Warzy.
Gasp.
Wow.
Well, this is production code 173-3641. Original air date October 14th, 1960. Stars Joe Mantell as Jackie Jones Rhodes and William D. Gordon as Georgie Porgy. This episode is notoriously known for very low budget. We were talking about in the first episode of the second season about how it felt like they had a much bigger budget, but apparently we're getting to a point where they've overspent on episodes, and Paramount is starting to notice these things. And you'll notice in Night of the Meek, and for about 6 episodes after that, they started winning it to videotape. But here, Paramount's like, you guys need to do something so low budget, and they're like, okay, I guess we'll do a one-man show and a $5,000 production budget, which is how much this movie or this episode cost, which makes me wonder how much they spent on each episode, which I couldn't find any information on. But it apparently $5,000 even back in 1959, 1960 was not a lot of money for an episode. So I don't know what you guys think about that.
Funny, because we'll get to a part. There is something in this episode I thought, at least for the time, probably was costly. But
I'm just looking up how much it is by today's standards.
I mean, nowadays, this particular effect that's used for the second part of the episode, nowadays, I could do it in 5 minutes on my computer. But back then, I imagine it was, I don't know if it's costly. I'm sure it was difficult. I'm honestly not 100% sure how they did it. I'm going to want to talk about that.
$5,000 in 59 is $50,000 today.
So still not a lot of money. See how they spent $70 million an episode on Stranger Things.
Yeah, but they weren't spending $1 million. I remember when ER back in the late 90s, they were people like losing their shit because they were doing $1 million an episode. And that was like the first one. And that was in the 90s. So I don't know. What was the average episode? What did an average episode of whatever, anything, half-hour episode cost back then?
I think it would be like 50,000 maybe.
Really?
At the most? You think it would be more or less?
I have no idea. I always just think everything's less back then. I don't know.
I'm just looking it up. Give me a second here, gents.
I have another flower cup today. All my cups are extremely manly, by the way. I live in a house full of women. So yeah, all the coffee cups are typically flowery or pink or something like that. My Trivial Theater cup is in the car.
Oh, that's okay. It's a good place for it to be. Okay, so I can't find average, but 8 of the most expensive TV shows made in the 60s and 70s. Let's see here. Wagon Train was $100,000 an episode.
Damn.
Bonanza was $225,000 an episode.
Yeah.
Star Trek was $200,000, and that was in money back then, not now.
Well, it only lasted 3 seasons because they ran out of money.
Yeah,
that was one of the things about Star Trek. It cost too much. I do remember hearing that.
Yeah, it was worth almost $2 million in today's money. Land of the Giants was $250,000 an ep. Planet of the Apes was $250,000. The Virginian was $330,000 an episode. Time Tunnel was $500,000. The pilot episode was $500,000.
Time Tunnel.
Super Train, never heard of, was over $1 million an episode.
Super Train. How much was Soul Train?
I don't know.
Dynamite.
You too can be a Soul Train dancer. Dynamite. That was the hell was that? Damn it! If I hadn't said Dynamite, I could tell you what was the name of that show.
Soul Train.
Good Times. Was it Good Times?
Yeah,
Good Times. Good Times.
Happy
Good Times.
Yeah. Okay. So, anyways, so this episode is very basic in its presentation, but it's very Twilight Zone, and it's it's like production. It has a crazy, weird premise and storytelling. Thank you. Says Serling wrote the teleplay in response to a request from CBS to write scripts using as few actors as possible for budgetary purposes. $5,000 budget. So this episode is actually one that I remember while watching, but I'm assuming like you guys, do you guys remember this at all before watching it, or do you, when you watch, you're like, oh yeah, this is something I've seen before, that type of thing?
Negative, Ghost Rider.
Negative. You didn't have fuel in your blood.
I actually knew this one pretty well. The ending, it's been a hot minute since I've seen it, but I knew like the ending, I wasn't 100%. I knew that he saw himself in the mirror, but I didn't remember what happened like at the end. So
I have questions about the ending to this episode as well, whether the certain thing happened or he was a certain thing or whatever, but we'll get into that. But this episode, I was watching this episode and I actually don't remember, was there an act break in this episode? I don't remember. I don't think there was.
His act break.
Was.
Where is it? It was where was it? I actually thought I wrote it down. There is an act break, but it was like when he first like hears from his buddy in the mirror.
Yeah. Apparently, basically, this episode is pretty easy to talk about. It doesn't have a lot to it. This guy is a con man, a nickel and dime, robs banks or stores or whatever. He's on his he could go on his third strike if he's not careful. He's very nervous. He's in a room with no AC, it's sweaty. It's very hot in this room, very hot outside, which, if you know anything about back in the day, I'm pretty sure they didn't have AC to keep them cool. They had to deal with what they had with a fan and stuff like that. And we made a joke and we talked about this, I think before recording, but he gets a call from George, or he calls George and he's like, he needs something to do or something like that. And we both said it, or we all said it's like, he says George like 15,000 times.
He says it 20 times in the first 2 minutes. And over the course of the episode, he says it 56 times.
Yeah, I was gonna do the whole episode, just say your guys' names like as many times as possible until it got annoying, but I don't really feel like doing that. But I mean, this guy, Jackie John Rose, he's a very nervous guy. He's a very stressed out guy. He's a guy that is a con man, a shifty individual. He calls himself what was the word he calls himself? Strictly breaking and entering, nickels and dimes type of guy. I like the old gangster way he speaks in this episode. I always love that from these types of shows.
There's a lot of good wordplay in this, I think.
Mm-hmm. But what do you think about this setup? Like I said, we're used to these like big kind of bombastic episodes with a lot going on, and here we are, we're toned down. There's not much going on in this episode. It's just a lot of him staring at the mirror, talking to himself, kind of amping himself up. Like I said, we talked about it just a second ago. Georgie calls George like 1,000 times, saying George, and then George hangs up on him, says he's gonna come to talk to him. What do you guys think about this kind of like very basic, very small approach to this episode? Because like I said, we're used to a certain type of episode here. Rod Serling's like talking from the ceiling and stuff like that, looking down from very high up and stuff like that. But what do you guys think about that?
First off, that overhead shot was really bloody cool. Like the way that he walks in, like he just walks in and you can tell he's like, yeah, who's the pimp man? I am, like he just had that kind of a feel about him. I gotta say, when we first start, Jackie comes off as someone that's, I don't know, like he's not quite all there, it feels like. And maybe that's just
that kind of leads into like my feelings about the ending to this, about him having possible slip. Yeah, very split personality type of situation, and that's
almost maybe the kind of like what could have been like. It's almost like what's it? What the hell is it called? Sliding Doors, the Gwen Paltrow movie from the 90s. Yeah, that's a rom-com. I will shut up. Yeah, exactly.
Flashback.
I'm with you. I'm going with it.
Woohoo!
Let's see this thing out.
Fuck it.
I mean, at one point, George does refer to him as looking like a man trying to catch a subway at 5:00.
Yeah, there's sliding doors on subways.
Yes,
and sliding doors in that movie.
Yes.
See, we're doing like 7 degrees of Gwyneth Paltrow.
Hopefully, we don't go the vagina candle direction.
Damn it, that's where I was headed.
I just figured we were doing the 7 degrees of sliding doors in this episode.
I mean, he is kind of a pussy to start with. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. He's a pussy cat, right?
Yeah. Maybe.
But what about you, Jacob? What do you think about this kind of starting area about this episode?
I liked it. I ain't gonna lie. The first few minutes of the episode The first half of the episode was kind of hokey. Like the way he talked, it was like really over the top. He had that, it was entertaining, like the things he was saying and how he was saying them, but not necessarily in like that's like a really great performance kind of way. It was very like, yeah. Well, not like, that's like James Cagney or something. He just had like a way of talking and like lots of things. I'm sure I made lots of notes of the little phrases he uses. And the guy's just like, kind of like, not like, special ed simpleton, but he's just kind of a simple guy. And he's clearly been taken advantage of by people for his whole life. I don't know. I didn't hate it. I was just kind of like, okay, where's this going? I didn't see where it was going at first. And Jesus, can he say George again? He says the name George. I don't know. We need to get like a counter or something.
56 times.
Did he really? Was it 56 times?
It was 56.
Shit. If you took a drink every time this guy said the name George, first of all, you wouldn't be able to keep up. And secondly, you'd be smammered in 3 minutes. I mean, he says George like probably 30 of those times before George even shows up. So like it was kind of like, all right, this is overkill. Who is what? George. I feel like that's all he was saying. I mean, I was okay with it. It was fine. I was waiting to see where it was going to go. I didn't dislike it. I didn't love it. I was just kind of along for the ride for the first part.
Yeah, even Jackie has said quite a few times in the first, like throughout the course of the episode. Not as many, but it still is definitely a good chunk.
Yeah, I think George overshadows Jackie.
Oh, 100%. He says
like George, a parallel to the story as well.
Absolutely. Well, he says George 20 times in the first 3 minutes.
Yeah, I was like, man, he must really love George. He's saying George so much.
I think he's just that desperate where he's like stuttery, and you can see that he's a nervous guy, and they even talk about how nervous he is.
It's even in the title.
Yes.
He's
it's like
he's so like freaking sweaty. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's like the most literal title for a literal title for an episode ever.
It's one of the only really literal titles. Like most of them are kind of like there's a little bit more to it, and this is not that.
But before George, it takes a little while for Rod Serling to come
we still need to. I was going to say we still need to do the opening prologue.
Well, that's where I was heading to actually. No, I was going to say it takes a while for George to show up, but Rod Serling apparently is doing the narration from the ceiling. He apparently is suspended from the ceiling, looking down. He just walks in. He's like, "Hey, there's a ceiling. Let's do the opening narration."
That is badass, though.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He's like, "Fuck you. I am God."
Basically.
And as he comes down from the heavens and the ceiling, he bequeaths upon us, "This is Mr. Jackie Rhodes, age 34. And where some men leave a mark of their lives as a record of their fragmentary existence on earth, this man leaves a blot, a dirty, discolored blemish to document the cheap and undistinguished sojourn amongst his betters. What you're about to watch in this room is a strange mortal combat between a man and himself. For just in a moment, Mr. Jackie Rhodes, whose life has been given over to fighting adversaries, will find his most formidable opponent in a cheap hotel room that is in reality the outskirts of the Twilight Zone." That tripped up a lot there. That is a very heavy wordy intro.
If there's anything that you ever contribute to this podcast, it's wordy intros.
Yes.
I don't know.
Woody intros.
One of those words, I'm not even sure if I pronounced it right.
Sojourn.
Sure, and I know some of them I didn't, but Soldier, is it Sojourn? Is that
Sojourn? Yeah, Sojourn.
Yeah, Sojourn.
Yeah, that sounds French. Sounds like, okay, if this is Spanish, it's Sojourn. English, Sojourn, but maybe the J is silent. I don't know. So I just kind of slurred it a little bit and went over it fast.
That's okay.
It's all about, the intensity when you say something.
Well, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, I have my notes up here. And when I was watching this episode, apparently I wrote, Rod Doshis opening narration from the ceiling now. I don't know. It's supposed to say does his, yeah.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious.
I can't even say all those things you just said.
But with that narration, once again, Jackie, nervous man, $4 room. I love how it's $4. I'm like, I wish anything cost $4. And he's like, Rosen or Death by Small Creatures.
Dude, I love Roach Motel at the store
Yeah.
costs more than $4 nowadays.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and back in the day, you got places that say please turn off lights for $4, and that's saying something, I'll tell you.
Oh, I was watching Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and they're inside the really crappy hotel room, and he puts a quarter on to have the bed vibrate. I'm like, oh man, the times.
I've been in
There's
a
like a
hotel room with one of those.
Nice.
It didn't
Or
work.
were the
I was so upset because it was 50 cents actually, but yeah, I've been in a hotel room one time. It was a real sleazy place on the way to Memphis one night, impromptu trip. And it had one of those, I guess it was supposed to be a vibrating bed. They called it something else, but I think like you
Magic
put it in,
fingers.
I don't know. And I was like, oh, I've seen these in movies, and I put it in and it didn't do anything. I was like, fuck.
So George comes into the mix. He finally enters the room. He is played by William D. Gordon. And I specifically wrote he has a porn stash and he looks like Norm Macdonald, which I don't know if you guys saw that or not. He really does look like Norm Macdonald.
R.I.P. Norm Macdonald.
Yeah, or R.I.P. I don't know. I thought he looked like Norm Macdonald a little bit, but that's just me.
We also find out that Jackie is in hot to him for his collar buttons.
He's hot to try.
Whatever the fuck that means. You're in hot for me. You're in hot to me for your collar buttons. I was like, I don't know what that means, but I'm gonna write it down. That sounds like a lexicon word if I've ever heard one.
Well, that's a lot of what Jackie says in this episode. There's a lot of like old timey 60s gangster stuff. Just like, what does that mean?
Because he's a gleep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
What the hell is a gleep?
I don't know. I wrote
Hang
down
on.
another one. I was like,
Hang on.
How do you spell that?
Yeah, he's like, when he tells him to do a certain thing to an old man at the bar, he's like, old man runs a little bar, fights the old bum, no protection, spits in the eye. I'm like, man, I miss the 60s. I should
Like they're just saying words.
I know.
You're just saying words and putting them together like it's a sentence, but it's not. This makes no sense.
Rod Serling had acid on him when he was doing this. He's like the guy from
oh Jesus.
Yeah.
So according to Urban Dictionary, which I'm gonna go back further because I think this is probably too modern. So the thief, it comes from an Arthur episode, World's Greatest Gleeper. There's also a square-headed boy with small nipples.
That's the one. That's him. He's a square-headed man with small nipples.
The word that people say after having sex.
Gleep?
Gleeper.
Gleep. What you just say that you just out. I'm gonna try that. And Gleep. Gleeper.
Oh, it's okay. So according to 50s verbiage, it's used to describe a nerd or like someone who's a square.
I think we should just go with the original.
Square with small nipples.
Yes.
Yeah, square with small nipples. You gleep.
Oh, hey, they're also talking about a flutter butt.
Flutter butt.
Yeah, they've got gleep, and then they got. Well, no, this wasn't in there, but they're just like they have like the one thing, and then they have the things that are associated with it under Google. They have what is a gleeper, and then they have what is a flutter butt, and a flutter butt is a good-looking male. So you guys are both flutter butts.
A good-looking male.
Yes.
Yeah, flutter butt.
Yep.
I don't know if I want to be known as a flutter butt. I don't think it'll hold the same connotation nowadays.
You're gonna change your title or the name of your channel to Jacob Anders
Flutterbutts
reviews.
Flutterbutt Anders reviews. Well, I mean, to me personally, you guys are a couple torpedoes, you know.
Nah. Torpedoes?
Yeah.
But we'll get like picked up later. Porn industry. What?
Yeah.
When George is talking to Jackie about killing the old man, which is this episode got really dark. You're like, he gives him a gun. He says he's getting up in the world. He's like, you need to kill a little old man, runs a little bar, fights the old bum, no protection, spits in the eye. George threatens to kill Jackie if he doesn't perform on this hit job on this old man. And he basically threatens to skin him, which I thought was really dark, really crazy. But at this point, it's basically Joe Mantell by himself for probably, I don't know, 15 minutes, I think it is, where he starts talking to the mirror, and then the mirror responds back to him with a guy in a cigarette and a much cockier attitude. And that's kind of where it leads off in the act break, like Trip said earlier. So what do you guys think of this first act? Does it approve to you? Does it make you want to subscribe? Does it get you all hot and bothered? Are you sweaty after watching it? What do you guys think?
You feel guilty, so you'll subscribe.
Exactly.
Do you just you hit that X?
I'm always down to hit that X.
Oh yeah.
Wait a minute, that
Triple
can't-
X.
not the X. no.
The X. You hit the X.
The X.
He does before that, he does like try and like psych himself up to do it. Like he's having a conversation with just his own image in the mirror, like, you know, who am I as a person? And, you know, like he does the argument thing and then his mirror starts to talk back to him. And that's at that point. But some of the questions
mirrors.
Exactly. He does actually ask himself, you talking to me, and it was the first time that line was uttered long before Taxi Driver, long before Dirty Harry, so that's kind of cool.
Talking to me, cigarette myself.
Exactly, because there's nobody else around.
Much like up to this point, I was pretty much still in the same boat as I was earlier when I talked about it, where I was like, okay, it's fine. I'm not blown away by this episode. It's over the top. It's kind of, you know, hokey, not hokey, kind of, yeah, I guess, you know, just like over the top, hokey, that kind of performance. I was like, all right, it's got this guy running around. He's nervous as hell. And then his mirror goes all Ash Williams and starts talking to him crazy. I was waiting for it to reach out and grab him. I will say, and we see much more of this in the second half, but the effect that they use for the mirror was much more convincing. Well, I was like, by nowadays standards, it's not, but for 1960, I was like, that was a really, especially since they were trying to do this on the cheap, it was a really good effect. Because I was sitting there looking at it and I was like, okay, I don't think they had like chroma technology, at least not to the degree that we do nowadays. I don't think it's rear projected either, or like a screen, because I don't think they have
like a
screens that big.
superimposed, I think is what it is.
Yeah, I thought of that as a superimposed, but damn, he like moves over the mirror. He's over the image. So superimposing it like that, I'm like, I guess maybe I don't know, because they would have to track it. And tracking back then was they took scissors and it looked really clean. However they did that. I mean, I'm not 100% sure of exactly what kind of tech they had. I mean, they did like, you know, Mary Poppins and stuff, but that's really just animating over. So I don't know exactly. It was the integration of the two, just the picture being in the mirror, or the video of the guy in the mirror. Yeah, they just superimposed that. That's fine. I get that. But it was when they came in, not contact, but he like passed over the mirror. It was, you could see a difference a little bit, but it was pretty seamless. I was like, wonder how they're doing that effect, because they didn't have chroma tech back then. I mean, they weren't putting a green screen or a blue screen up at that point. I don't think.
They did have Luma, like basically a Luma key. So they had like
kind of like Star Wars did.
Star Wars, or if you want to go back even further, they did stuff like the Invisible Man. So they did have that technology. I'm pretty sure that this is rear projected, honestly. Like the thing that
like
gets
a screen.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And they just had it cut into that, like the area of the mirror there. But
Do you think there's a hole behind the wall or something?
They would have had to have something like that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure the way it's set up and the fuzziness of it, I'm pretty sure it was rear projected.
See, that's what get the fuzziness. That's why I was like, I'm not sure. Maybe it is rear projected. It probably was, honestly. But like, I do think there's a hole in that wall at that mirror, because later on, when he's looking in the mirror and there's no reflection, it's not for much. But when he's saying, "Hey, where you at? Where you at? Come talk to me," and he's looking in the mirror, there's absolutely no reflection, but it's dead on. So there should be a reflection. You should see the camera. And the only way they can do that is cut a hole in it and have the same room, or at least part of the same room on the other side, so it looks that way.
Well, what was the episode?
The train
the one where he's a ghost.
Oh yeah.
They did that with that too. They did the twins. What was that episode?
That's where it was in the train station. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Shit, I remember the episode, but yeah, we were talking about that then. That was more elaborate.
But like same basic idea, though, definitely. The one thing that got me about all those scenes where he's playing off himself, you would have to have your timing perfect to be able to do that. Like, I wonder how many takes that took to do that, because there wasn't a lot of cuts in those takes.
There weren't like a ton, but it wasn't like a one take or anything. But I mean,
definitely.
he was like, I'd have to go back and look at the cuts, but I did notice it would cut back to him, back to this. It was usually over his shoulder, so you still saw him. So it wasn't like they wanted you to see this effect, but it would cut to his face of him talking sometimes. So he probably only had to get a few lines right.
Yeah.
which would still be difficult when you're going up against a video recording, essentially.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's pretty well done for 1960. Like today, like you said earlier, Jacob, you could have done that on your computer in 5 minutes, but it definitely feels like it was filmed separately. So there is definitely some graininess to the character, but if you think about it, you're working with $5,000 budget. If this is the best they can come up with, $5,000, they're doing pretty good for the for the budget. So
and rear projection. I mean, that had been around since the silent era, since early silent era.
Oh yeah.
So they knew the technology, and regardless of budget, I can't think that it would have been like that much different as far as like the quality of the image isn't going to change that much. Like any rear projected image, whether you're talking about like out the back of a vehicle or whatever, if it's black and white, it's going to be pretty similar to that style.
I don't know. I wonder if it was like an image that was further back beyond, there was a hole there, or if it was just shot up. I don't know. It was a good effect for 1960. I mean, up to that point, I think I was saying what I thought about the first half. Like I said, that was like literally that happens and then it cuts. I liked the effect. That was kind of like, oh, look at that. But up to that point, beyond all the catchphrases he says and stuff, I was just kind of like, all right, where's this going? What are we doing here? Like I said earlier, I didn't hate it, but I wasn't loving it. I was just kind of like, it's fine.
I mean, that pretty much leads into the second act. I mean, it really is just him talking to himself, trying to the other side. I think it's interesting because you think the other him, the one that's smoking the cigarette, that's kind of more forceful, is the one that needs to come out to do the job. But there's a much interesting different arc to it where, as we see at the end, it just leads into something different. But like, talking about this before George comes back and we see what happens, the back and forth, it's a really interesting kind of play mentality where you have one guy on the stage and he's just doing pretty much everything. He's doing all the work. And I like the back and forth. I like how they talk to each other. I like how Jackie kind of does what he does, and he's talking to himself, and he's starting to kind of trying to slink away, but still kind of drawn into Jackie, the other Jackie, the mirror Jackie. And I don't know, I mean, what do you guys think about that? Because the ending is really interesting, but what do you guys think about that kind of stuff too?
I thought they did a really good job. Like, you always kind of hear about those one man or one woman shows, and the strength of what they do is based on their ability to make you forget that it's just one person. I mean, look at even something like Golem versus Smeagol or things like that. And obviously you're talking two different characters, but I really like, between the angles that they used and the way that they cut it and everything else, it did work very well, I thought, as far as keeping you intrigued with what was going on. Like they told you everything you needed to know, and it was exposition heavy, but it didn't feel exposition heavy.
Yeah, I mean, we learned a little bit about Jackie himself, like as Jacob was saying earlier, about his age and what he's been through and his lifetime and stuff like that. So
now that part I really did like. That is when I did it. I took a bit more notice when because like I felt like the first half, like I said, was a little hokey and just kind of over the top, and this guy like saying random ass shit. But when he and himself, or the other him in the mirror, started having that legit conversation about like the woman and letting her down years ago and all that, it's like all of a sudden, like the performances from both ends, just especially the one in the mirror was always kind of serious, but his performance went from being like this and all that, and the whole I'm gonna put the finger on somebody and all that, it went to a much more somber, realistic, legitimate performance. And I was like, that was like a legit interaction between him and this mirror man, where they were like talking. You saw some actual like acting, subtle acting, like you saw some pain and all that, and I was like, wow, they just really flipped that whole thing right there.
Yeah, because I'm with Jacob on this. I was really kind of down on the episode first half, but it's when George to me, George is just he's like a plot device to get the story going and the story ending. But it's this character of Jackie talking to himself, and I don't know how you guys feel, but there are times where I'll look in the mirror and I'll talk to myself in reflection. It doesn't usually go this route, but you usually talk to yourself and you kind of psych yourself out, because
exactly.
usually like Jacob goes in the mirror, he's like, son of a bitch. He's like looking at himself. He's like, you're the one that has 16 million subscribers, don't you?
I look in the mirror and I go, you're a bright shining star. You're a big, bright, shining fucking star. Anybody
just-
get that reference? Hang on, wow. I'll whip this
'Cause
out.
Because I'm good enough, I'm strong enough, and gosh
Doggone
darn
it,
it,
people like
everyone
me.
loves me. But seriously, like this is what I talk about with the mirrors in Twilight Zone. It's the reflection of who we are and what we are, and that's what this episode basically is. It's just a reflection of the Jackie that he should be instead of the Jackie that he is, because there is a stronger self of us. And a lot of times, if you're like very meek or gleep, as they call it, and you look at yourself, inner self, when you're dealing with a stressful situation, it works pretty well to me personally.
Well, and we like you've talked about mirrors so much. Like this is a personification of everything involving mirrors in the Twilight Zone, really.
Yeah.
Like it ultimately does come down to those unsaid discussions with oneself in the mirror. Throughout all of them, whether you're talking walking distance or any of the others.
Well, early in the episode or before the break, when he walks up to the mirror and he sits there, as soon as he did that, I was like, okay, here we go. I was like, it's Twilight Zone and it's a mirror. So something's going on. So I'm like looking all over the mirror, like what's going on in the background or something like that. And he walks away. I was like, okay, maybe not. Oh, no, there it is.
And there was a lot of freaking mirrors for like one, for a $4 hotel room. There was probably $3.50 worth of mirrors.
Yeah, I was thinking $6 hotel room for sure, but that was $4.
Oh,
Yeah.
inflation.
Lots and lots of mirrors in there. He was looking at the man in the mirror.
Yeah.
Just me, man. I'm the only one getting these references tonight.
No, I
Oh
did.
no,
I
I get it. They're just
sorry, it's hard for the avatar to enunciate or
I do want to say that he said early in the or not early, right before the break, he goes to light a cigarette and he got no matches. And I was like, man, when I was a smoker back in the day, I was like, damn it, that's exactly how it is, man. When you really need that light, you ain't never got a fucking light. And that's the fucking worst when you're a smoker.
Well, and he even describes himself as like cigarettes without a match.
Yeah. I was like, that's how it is, man. I know how you feel. I got you.
And the mirror lights up because, mirrors can do that.
Like a fucking furnace worth of fucking smoke comes out of the mirror. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Ben would have loved this episode. He's like, there's so much cigarette smoke in this episode. But yeah, literally it's him talking to himself. Like there's not really much else to say on it. It just, he snaps at his reflection before George calls again. He says he's leaving right now. We'll be back at 2:30. He looks up and sees his reflection no longer there. We do get the point where George does get upset at the reflection, and he like spins, he like moves the mirror out of the wall, because I think he's looking for like maybe like another person or something like that. He doesn't see it, but when he spins it, like you can tell like they probably had a lot of work to do with that spinning motion with the reflection, which I can imagine was a pain in the ass in 1959 or 1960. But to kind of just like close out the episode, basically George comes back and he's pissed off because of course Jackie didn't finish the job, and he says he's gonna skin him. Like I said earlier, he's gonna skin him.
They're gonna take your skin off foot by foot.
Yeah.
Or foot by foot.
And what cracks me up is Jackie's like, I'm retiring, I'm done with this, and he becomes the Jackie we see in the mirror. This actually reminded me of Moon Knight a little bit, because there's Moon Knight, the Oscar Isaac character switches from like his meek personality to his like forceful personality. But the funny part about this is like George gets freaked out after he is basically, I think if I remember, he's punished or something like that. He falls to the ground and he's freaked out and he runs away, and Jackie throws a gun at him and drops the bullets in the trash can. If George is do you think George is like the boss and he got freaked out, or do you think he's working for someone? And if that said, Jackie, now this new personality, is somebody going to come up to him like in Red Dead Redemption or something like that and just like shoot and kill him at Jackie's character? He's going to shoot him at like the most opportune time. It's a little weird that George just kind of runs away.
Oh, his ass is dead.
I would take that as like the George character, like he's used to getting his way, used to like pushing George around, or sorry, pushing Jackie around, but the fact that he can't push him around anymore, he's pushing back. And I'm thinking like as an enforcer or whatever he is, like he can no longer do that. Oh, by the way, Jackie stops going by Jack and he goes back to being called John.
Yeah,
he's not an enforcer. He's just nickel and dimes.
Yeah, exactly.
But do you think Jackie or John now will be killed, or do you think George is killed? Like, what do you think this? Because he basically looks in the mirror, and that's when we see Jackie, the nervous guy. He's now like confined to the mirror. Is I go with like Jackie had split personality or something like that. But where do you think go? Like, this is I never asked this question, but where do you think it goes from here? Do you think Jackie goes and gets a wife and?
I don't. Okay, I don't think the episode is leading us down there. I don't think the writers in the episode want in their world, in this world. No, he didn't die. He became a better man and went on and got married and all that. In the real world, yeah, he's dead. They're gonna come take his ass out. But this is the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
So
maybe he went and opened up a plant shop and eventually had a killer plant from outer space come down and visit him.
There you go.
Eventually got eat. Yeah, that's how he died. He got fed to the plant.
Yeah, more than likely. You talk about it being split personality. I would almost when I watched this, I saw it more as like personality traits, like the strong personality traits, as compared to being like falling to everything and not standing up for yourself. Like it's just different parts of ourselves. Like there's always that voice in the back of your head, so kind of like the fight or flight, and it just kind of switched gears, kind of.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. Is it split personalities? I don't know if they were going that route, or if it was just like that was his confidence, that was his the stronger version of him that needed to come out.
Well, that's been a lot of the Black Phone, which I'm not really spoiling anything because it's about a kid who gets kidnapped, but a lot of it has to do with him having the confidence to stand up. And it's like I said, it's in the trailer, but it's the same thing a lot. Like it really feels like this episode is more about just what will you do in the moment of, will you be the scared rat, scared little chicken or whatever, or will you be the big alligator eats a chicken? And that's a very bad analogy.
They both make really good nuggets.
I thought the episode ended weird for a Twilight Zone episode because I was sitting there and I was like, is there another twist? Was the twist that the stronger Jackie took over? Which I kind of felt like we knew that was going to happen. I never really thought that was not going to happen. I don't know. I guess that was the twist. It had I'm not saying Twilight Zone always ends on like a downer note or anything, but episodes like this usually have that twist that's like, I told you. And this one didn't quite have that. It had like this kind of like upbeat, bright future ending. And I wasn't expecting that. I thought it was going to be, because his other selves kept saying, you go out there and do that tonight, you're going to see how things actually go. I figured it was going to be something like that. I don't know. So.
See, and I kind of took this episode just like, and this is a stupid reason to think so, but like from music alone, I kind of took this to be like one of the, like, not a cheeky episode per se, but a little bit more lighthearted episode because of how things rolled. Like it did have that kind of upward ending.
At first, especially the first half definitely did.
No, yeah, definitely so.
Me personally, I feel like this is an episode that you could tell is hamstrung by its budget. I think if it were, given the $50,000 or whatever each episode costs, I think this could have taken place in a different location, more expanded, more people, because he never leaves a room. So maybe he goes to the bar to threaten to kill him, and he has a change of heart and stuff like that. His, conscious, because he sees himself in like the different areas of the room. And I really think it's just, this is the constraints that, he had, that Rod Serling had. He had to do with what he had. And he's like, you know what? It's a guy who grows a pair of balls and decides he's going to be the man that he should have been. And it's just I don't know if this is really a Twilight Zone episode. I think that's the problem. I think it's a Twilight Zone episode. Yeah.
It didn't seem as Twilight Zone-y, but I don't think the issues I had with the episode, which I didn't hate the episode, but I liked the idea. I've always liked that kind of like inner personality personified on the screen for us. Is that really what's happening, or is that kind of in the person's head? This is how they're perceiving it. I like those episodes. And even the one-man show and being in one spot, I don't mind that. I think that still could have been done just fine. It's just the episode is kind of has split personalities itself, like that first, even more than the first half, because even after he starts seeing himself in the mirror, he's still all like and all that. it's not until like he kind of like stops and gets more real. That's when it got interesting to me. I was like, oh, okay, this is something, we're actually seeing something deep here. And I mean, you could say, well, that's supposed to be like this other person isn't really him. That's just who he's always been. And then, this mirror comes
It's a
out.
facade.
Yeah.
Kinda.
I guess that's that. There's that. But as far as like watching the episode, I would have much rather preferred. He could have still been the nervous little shit or gleep. But I just wish he had more of a performance like he did, or the character had been portrayed more like he was later in the episode, because I was able to, I don't know, sympathize with that character more.
You're able to see him as a person.
Yeah. And then like when he has the big change in the end, I don't know. It didn't hit like a Twilight Zone episode, even though it did have that kind of like oddness. I think it could have. I feel like the story was fine and I'm cool with it. And I think it could have been really interesting. And it was interesting to a degree, but I feel like it could have been more. Not necessarily more happened, just we could have gotten more from it. And it could have been more impactful,
Fair.
In my opinion.
Did you guys notice too, and this is something I was just kind of been thinking about, like the way that they introduce Jackie at the start, it's almost kind of the way the Four of Us Are Dying or Escape Clause, like the way the description of Jackie kind of goes that same way, like he's a worthless human being, he's never amounted to anything. It kind of follows that same bit. So you kind of come in knowing that this guy is, damaged goods and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it lays this dick on the table pretty early, but
Like
It probably did, honestly.
Yeah, it just lays his cards out on the table. It's like, here is this, it's going to do this, and that's kind of where it's going to lead. And there's no surprises, there's no tricks, it's just, this is where we're going. You're going to see it kind of coming, and that's going to be the end of the episode. And for better or worse, with the budget they have, I think there could have been more, but like you said, they got to do what you got to do. And
well, the surprise was, he shows up in the mirror, but that wasn't, that was just like, it's what do they do with it? There was my problem with it, I think, now that I think about it. The surprise was that, he's talking to himself in the mirror, and it's like another version of himself. There's another person he's essentially talking to. And that's cool. But what do you do with that? They didn't really do anything with it, except in that one part where they started talking about his past decisions and stuff. I just wanted more of that. If they had given more of that, even with his performance, if he had just kind of brought it down, and then you just had more of that to flesh his character out, I think that would have made it a whole lot better. Because as it stands, the Twilight Zone thing, guy in the mirror, but that wasn't enough. You needed to do something with that. And I didn't feel like they did a whole lot with it. Yeah, he was there saying, let me out, let me out. We've seen that. And this may have been the first, I don't know. But at least since then, we've definitely seen plenty. Like you said, Moon Knight and everything. You've seen plenty of these things where people are talking to the other version of themselves in a mirror or something like that. And then they switch. And that version takes over. We've seen it, in situations like this where it's a good thing. We've also seen where the bad one takes over and all that. That's not a new, whether it was at the time or not, that's not a new thing for TV and or movie. I just wanted it's what you do with that afterwards. And I didn't feel like they did enough with it. They were just kind of riding off of the, look, there's a guy in the mirror and it's him and he's talking to himself. And I was like, okay, what are you going to do with this? And as soon as they start doing something good with it, then the episode ends. Or it goes to him having changed.
This is random, but what if, wipe the slate clean of him becoming a killer? What if he would have been deciding whether to kill himself? Would that have made the difference? Like if Maybe. It went that route?
I honestly think it was just kind of, for me, I mean, I feel like the purpose of him having this conversation with this other version of him in the mirror is because he's at a loss. He's at this place where he's just like, I don't know what to do. I need that Jiminy Cricket to come and talk to me or whatever. And that's what happens. But it just, it's a cool effect. And I like that. And it does actually start going into that, talking about, talking to him about his past wrongdoings for a minute and then just nothing. There's nothing else that man in the mirror needed to be there for. And I'm just like, I just wanted a little bit more of that. And it kind of, that was the thing in the episode. I didn't feel like, I guess that's supposed to be how he convinces him to, let him take over, if you will, or let him become the man you can be or that you really are or whatever. I just feel like we could, but I think it's because that was what, a minute, 2 minutes? There's 20 more minutes of the episode. We couldn't have gotten maybe 5.
You think it would have? So do you think it also could have worked with him talking to himself outside of the mirror? Do you think in the mirror?
The mirror part, I was cool with that. I mean, I
Mhm.
like that because it's like, hey, I'm confined to this mirror. Let me out. That's fine. I didn't feel like they really had much to say, regardless
Yeah.
of where they were talking. Because we've seen that before too. I mean, we've seen where someone will be talking to a version of themselves that's not really there, that's in their head, and it's personified on film as just another person. I mean, what's the Nicolas Cage movie that the weight famous?
The
I
unbearable
finally saw
weightness
that
of massive.
he does
Yeah.
that there, and that was played more for laughs. But I mean, you know what I mean. And we've seen that type of thing done on film before. I mean, I'm fine with the mirror. I'm fine with them being out there. I just want there to be some substance and a reason for that effectively other character to be there. And I felt like there was a reason for this character to show up in the mirror, but we just didn't get it seemed he said like one or two things of any weight, and then it was done. Maybe that's just how how fragile Jackie. Trying to condense my words to make this shorter. That's how fragile Jackie was, I guess. He just needed that little bit, just a little push.
I think that you make a good point in that respect. I think that he is honestly that, because clearly he's been a follower his whole life, the way he's described. So it probably was a case where it didn't take much to like get him to change one way or the other, really.
Sure. Doesn't change the fact that I still want more.
No, understood. I agree. I think they're definitely, this is like I'm sure that the psychology behind this episode, there's probably a lot to be said in that respect, but the way that we're looking at this, it's like I say, it's been a hot minute since I watched this, and watching it with a critical eye, you definitely go the first half, okay, he's a simpleton or, a patsy or whatever the hell you want to call him. There's not a lot to him as a character. He's just whiny little nervous bitch who sweats like a freaking son of a bitch.
Who talks about George way too fucking much.
Yeah, exactly. And just the nervousness of the way that he spoke and everything. There wasn't a lot there. It wasn't until he confronted himself that he started to have more of that. Like you could have condensed this episode into half the time and still had the full understanding of everything going on.
Yeah, or get to the mirror part, because that's the crux of the episode. Get to that part quicker. I felt like that beginning half, one of the reasons I wasn't like fully in it, I mean, I was fine with it, but was because it just kind of went on. I mean, he's just running around this room. I feel like they could have, I know they were trying to let us see that, hey, this guy's really nervous, high strung, and worried about this George guy. And then George shows up, they have a little conversation. I feel like all of that could have been condensed, and you could have gotten into what the crux of it is, him having a conversation with his true self, or with himself, and deciding to have this big change in his life. And
could have almost not had George in the episode, just had him.
He was on the phone,
completely removed. Yeah.
He could have just. It could have been a one-sided conversation. He could have been like, "What? You want me to do what?" Because he had a phone conversation with him in the beginning, or you hear him on the other end of the phone. I mean, they did not need all that. And I know it's only a 24-minute episode, so the first half was what, like 11, 12 minutes. But that 11 or 12 minutes, when you look at it to scale, that's half the damn thing you're watching. And when half of it is just kind of like nothing, you're trying to convey two things to me. This guy's a nervous wreck, and this George guy wants him to kill somebody, and he's kind of overbearing. I don't think it needed to take half the episode to do that.
Yeah.
Because by the time we get to the mirror stuff, which is interesting, they have such a short period of time to do with it. It's like there and gone.
Yeah. And that's something that happens with a lot of Twilight Zone episodes anyway. They spend so much time getting you into the scene that they kind of rush through the good stuff. And
then sometimes that's the crazy thing about Twilight Zone. Sometimes they don't. Like we talked about last week with the genie, they just added, okay, we got to get these people on board believing there's a genie. We only got 24 minutes to do it. Add another wish. Bam, broken. I just fixed it. There you go. I mean, you just condensed a lot of like these types of stories that take all that time to, oh, is the genie real? Is he not? Are you really going to give me what should I wish? Blah, 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 blah. Here, pal, freebie. It's real. You can wish shit. There you go. And like they did really good in that episode of condensing down a lot of stuff into just one, like about a 60-second act.
It's funny. He went from bitch to butch.
He did.
But clearly, the real problem with this episode, it didn't have any explosions.
It did
not. It did not.
Yeah.
But you know where we could put some explosions? In the ranking. I've been saying you needed to add explosions to that for a while.
That's true.
I'm not that crafty. I'm gonna have to pay someone like Trev to do that. So
I got some explosion overlays. I know explosions. I got them. I can send them
He's
to
the
you.
Michael Bay of the group.
there you go.
Yeah.
All you need is some drones. No, but in all honesty, it's just a very simple episode. It's something that you could have seen. I'm going to be honest, you can see it on any TV show. You can see it. It's an episode that feels very standard, very traditional. I enjoyed it. I'm just going to throw out there. I enjoyed it because I felt the ending was really strong, but you make a lot of cases and arguments and interesting.
I didn't hate it. Let's get that right.
But the stuff you bring up makes a good case for.
Yeah, I mean, I
didn't just the way the
dislike
episode's
it.
paced. Yeah.
Well, look at Allergy. Look at episodes like that. Like the build up, the thing that makes the episode really like pop is that last, the back half of the back half,
Well, and that's coming off of LG had like that's an episode that's all build up, and then you get the pow moment, and that's I don't know. That's
maybe that's not the
not.
best. Yeah.
But the thing is with those episodes, you can do that, and that's fine. You gotta have like your buildup has to be interesting. You have to be asking the questions. Like throughout Elegy, you're like, why are these people frozen? What is going on here? Why does it like look like different times? Why you're asking yourself, but you're working through this stuff in your head. It has you invested because you're trying to figure it out until bam, okay, there's the answer. This one, I was asking, when is it going to start in the first half? That's not the question they want you to be asking.
No.
As it's going, I'm like, okay, what is the thing here? What's going on? And that's not the questions you want to ask. They didn't have me hooked by the story. I was only asking that because I know it's the Twilight Zone. So like, obviously something's going to happen, but I don't know what. And, oh, okay, it's a mirror thing. Oh, it's over. I mean, I just think they could have done more with that. And we could say, oh, they were held back by budgets and all that stuff. And yeah, obviously that makes a difference. But when it comes to creativity, we've seen other people be at their best creativity, have their best creative moments when they're held back by budgets and stuff like that. I mean, it's what you do with it at that point. Look at Jaws. It's supposed to show the shark a whole bunch more, but the fucker kept breaking, so they had to make, and it was a better movie for it. A totally different ball game, I know, but that's just a situation where okay, we were held back by budgetary concerns, but it ended up better because they got creative with it. I feel like here they did want it to be bigger, kind of like you said, Nick, and maybe that would have worked better. I don't know, but instead of saying what can we do now that we can't do this, our full original vision, how can we take that and just tweak it and have it be just as good? I don't feel like they did that. I just feel like they said, well, this is what we can do, and they went with it, and it didn't come off as creatively as good.
Yeah. I don't know much more else to say, but yeah, it's
they spent all their money on getting all kinds of crazy lexicon words.
Yeah, they spent all their money on George. They're like, George.
They paid him by the saying of his name.
Right. He's actually like, I expect $1,000 per name.
He's a fucking billionaire after this episode.
Yeah, no doubt.
Right. So
like I said, didn't hate it, but it just I thought it could have been a lot better.
So yeah. With that said, Trev, do you have anything else to say? Or are you good? Or
I had a couple of lexicon things. I'm gonna put the finger on someone.
Oh yeah, I got that one. Turn that on to in, and you got something.
Oh, definitely so. Let's see, walking on your lower lip all the time.
Oh, I didn't hear that one. That's a good one. There was a lot in this episode, man. So it's like understandable.
Makes up for like the last 6 episodes.
Yeah, 100% does. A raunchy little Welcher.
That's a good one.
Let's see. I'm gonna slice myself a nice bit of cabbage.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
That was the last 5 minutes. Let's see, what else do I have? You look like a man trying to catch a subway at 5 o'clock. You look like someone trying to squeeze you through a door.
You're in hot to me for collar buttons. Your collar buttons.
Yep. Let's see. I thought I had one other. Well, I guess I'm all nickels and dimes.
I'm gonna slice off a nice piece of cabbage. Was that what it was?
Yep.
I like that one.
It's when it's near the end when he's having the argument with himself, and he kind of like he spins the mirror, and then he backs away and said he's gonna slice himself off a nice bit of cabbage, and then the mirror gets closer and closer to him after that. So
I wonder what the hell that means.
I think he's gonna go like make some money, I think.
Cabbage is money. I gotcha.
Yep.
No, he's just gonna go slice cabbage. He really wants sauerkraut.
I just really
Yeah.
like cabbage, you know.
Dude, I've been craving Reuben's for days.
I can make
Dude,
a.
I had sauerkraut on a bratwurst one time. It was the most amazing thing I've ever had.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
I got bratwurst in my refrigerator.
Well, get him out. Hungry or
out.
whatever.
You gotta
Don't
pay
know
with
if
that
it's gonna be any
bratwurst.
good.
All right. So, anyways,
Young
that
man.
is our discussion of Nervous Man in a $4 Room or My Life in a Nutshell.
What would that be nowadays, by the way? If they like
Nervous Man in a $65 room.
shit, not even that. Nervous Man in a
Hang
I
on.
don't know, $120 room. That's probably the cheap rooms nowadays.
Nervous Man in a dwelling.
Hang on.
Were those like hotel rooms that people rent by like the week or whatever?
Extended stay properties.
Lists.
No,
List?
we still have to
Are
do
we
the
doing lists
closing
now?
narration.
Oh, no, we did the narration, didn't we?
Did
Yeah.
we? No.
I
Yeah,
did.
we did. Yeah, we did.
I did.
Closing narration?
Yeah,
I
he
did
did
do
it.
The exit,
The
Mr.
wishful
Joe
thinker
Rose.
made out of glass.
Yeah.
But now made out of flesh.
God.
We're
You
men,
guys'
manly
stories-
men. We're men and tight.
Yeah,
tights.
join the company of men.
La,
Nick
la,
doesn't
la,
listen to us
la,
when we
la,
talk.
la, 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 la.
So, anyways, okay. So Twilight Zone list, the list that nobody else can copulate, that type of thing.
Oh, copulating list, huh?
Yeah.
Nice.
Let me get a pen and
So,
paper.
anyways, where are we gonna put this episode? Is this like a top 20 episode? Is it a bottom 20 episode? Is it a helicopter dick episode? Like, where do you guys want to put this?
That one.
I think it's lower top 20.
Is this like above elegy, below elegy?
I know that it's not. I know that allergy probably wasn't the greatest way to like explain what it was like, but I still kind of like get that vibe. That it's sort of in that realm, but maybe it doesn't belong there. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm starting at least. But it doesn't have to sit there if you guys don't think so.
Where are we going above? Are you talking above?
I
or
was gonna
below
say
that?
right around allergy.
Let's see. We have execution right before that, and Mr. Beavis right after it. I think as say what you will about Elegy, I think I liked Elegy viewing experience wise of Elegy more. That's the thing. I like the idea of this episode, and I like some of the things they did, and I really like single man and or woman play like a single location and single person. I think they can be done. Actually, my favorite Twilight Zone episode that we'll get to soon, that will be number one. It is essentially a single person story. So I like those. So I like the idea behind this. I like the whole idea about talking to yourself and like all that. It's the execution. I'm going to say Elegy for me was a little bit more of a enjoyable viewing experience. And then I think it's better than The Chaser.
Well, I'll say here's where I'm looking at. I'm looking at like right below Escape Clause, right above The Last Flight.
Oh, below Escape Clause? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
See, I would rather watch this one than Chaser, but I know that's not the only thing to look at as far as things go.
Well, that's what I was saying. I like this one better than The Chaser.
But then,
Because
Escape Clause is one of those great episodes too.
yeah, we got a Perchance to Dream situation.
Yeah,
here.
kinda.
So,
We could
So
actually
number
do
9?
number
Yeah.
11.
so
Number 11.
so Perchance to Dream goes back to number 10, and we put this at number 11.
Woohoo!
and then
Yes.
no. Perchance to Dream number 12. Everything goes before Perchance to Dream from now on
Yeah.
until Perchance to Dream is in last.
New
place.
number 1 then, right?
Second to last. I don't know. I'm cool with I was gonna say that I like this better than the like I would put it. If you said where are we putting it? It's totally up to you. I'd say between Mr. Beavis and The Chaser, but if you want to go lower than that, I'm fine with that. Because Escape Clause was a more enjoyable episode as well. And Third from the Sun, I keep coming back to that fucking episode. It has such a great ending, but I do have to admit that the rest of it was just kind of
Yeah.
But Escape Clause, I think, is better. So Nick's lower. I thought Nick would be higher than us.
I think initially he
Well,
was, but then you talked him
yeah.
down, man. You talked him
Talked-
down.
talked
You talked me off
Damn
the ledge.
you.
You talked me off the roof.
What about
The roof's not
like-
on fire.
exactly? What about like 23?
24,
No, 23.
23.
Yeah.
So
Fine with
above
that.
Third from the Sun.
Because that's middle of the road. Like I said, 20. You said like 25.
I'm cool with that because, like I've always said, I think Third from the Sun has a fantastic ending. But after we talked about it, I had to face the fact that the episode as a whole was just kind of not much happening here. Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Escape Clause used to be the middle of the pack.
It still
What
kind of
happened?
is. I mean, it's a little bit lower than the middle, but
I mean, yeah, you could. I mean, you could
middle-ish.
make that. I guess. Yeah, it would have to be. It would have to be like if we wanted to make it up, keep it up there. It would have to be 25, wouldn't it? Because yeah, Escape Clause is just a really fun episode.
that whole area right there, I'm cool with. 23, 24.
I've already made the executive decision because I've just finished my list. We're gonna put it at 23.
Yay! I won! Woohoo!
It's crazy. We're almost.
I concur.
So yeah, so I'm fine with that. Like I said, in that area where the episode's enjoyable, but it's not like the greatest episode ever. I mean, we'll eventually have other episodes that go above it, so it'll be the middle of the road type of episode eventually. So actually, it kind of is already.
Yeah. I like the idea, and I didn't hate the episode, but it's just I don't know. I think Triv hit the nail on the head. This could have been condensed down to half the length, the runtime, and been a much more cohesive story.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, you did too. I think they could have expanded upon it and made it better as well. It could have gone either way. I just feel like they didn't. They were because I didn't know that until you said in the beginning that they were told by CBS or whoever, "Hey, you stop spending so much fucking money, Rod." And I feel like they didn't. They said, "Okay, we're gonna take the production down. We're gonna drop the amount of money we're using, and obviously, production values are gonna go down." But they didn't change the story. They just took stuff out.
Yeah.
And they didn't adjust the story to be, figure out how to make things more creative. Because there was probably some other stuff in the story that they couldn't do because of budgets. They just took it out. They didn't replace it with anything.
See, and I think this was written specifically after they were told to cut budget. So like in theory, the way that it was written was the way it was meant to be written.
Well, maybe it's because they entered into it thinking, oh, this is lesser because we are writing this because we were told to do lesser. So it just didn't get that love. I don't know.
I would say like it's like if you look at so many low budget movies, you can either see a low budget as a hindrance and go the route of Amazing Bulk, or you can look at a low budget and go the way of Lamageddon. And I mean, the two different,
faster.
Exactly. Like you can see it as hindrance or see the opportunities and the challenges and present or go after them accordingly.
Well, I mean, there's been tons of films and I'm sure shows as well that have gotten, hey, either your budget, you don't have the money, you're missing, there's something that's hindering you from being able to realize your original full vision. And I feel like some of the really good creators out there, not to say Rod Serling's not, but in this situation, I think it was a little bit of a fumble, but some of the really great creators out there have said, okay, I'm going to make the best of this. I mean, like I said, Jaws, that totally changed the tone of that movie. Well, not the tone, but it changed a lot about that movie. And I mean, Saw, the original Saw, they didn't have much money at all, and they look what they made. I mean,
you can go Clerks and El Mariachi.
Yeah.
El Mariachi is a perfect example. No money. You want to talk about no money? That's no damn money, but he made that shit work.
Mm-hmm.
They had glowing eyes to a freaking llama and just let it wander around, and they turned it into like such a fun and crazy and genuinely kind of gory ass movie. It was awesome.
Yeah.
You saw a different El Mariachi than I did. I know what you're talking
this
about.
was the El Marilama.
But no, I just think that maybe they dropped the ball a little bit on I think they probably committed to hey guys, this is a cheapo episode. I got a good idea. Let's just put that in there and make it happen.
I mean, in the end, they spent $5,000. They got, it's not bad for $5,000. So they got
spent
more
right
money on the
person.
Fever, and look what that happened.
I was gonna say it's not the Fever or the Four of Us Are Dying.
Yeah.
Or 60mm Shrine.
Or Perchance to Dream.
Or I was trying not to do it.
I will also say I think they got the right person to play it. Like I think he did a really good job. Like when it got serious, he did a great job. I think.
Oh yeah.
Like
I wanted more of that.
Yeah.
That was my whole complaint. I wanted more of that. That was intriguing. That was interesting. Give me more. Not that specifically. Just give me more stuff that hooks me. Because the mirror thing at first was like, okay, there's your hook. What you're not, what do you, okay, not doing anything with it. Oh, here's something. It's like, do something with it. And I didn't feel like they did really. Not to the degree that I was wanting them to.
Right.
But I don't think it was, I think they did. I think it was good, just not great.
Understandable.
So with that said, new number 23 is Nervous Man in a $4 Room. Of course, because this list is 2 pages, the Big Tall Wish actually moves over to the second page with the 9 other episodes in that list. So Fever is number 39 now. Monsters Do Maple Street is at number 1, which means we are about to hit episode 40 of our podcast.
Wow.
Which
Oh,
yeah. And we're going to be talking about season 2, episode 4, which is called A Thing About Machines. We will do, we hopefully, unless things implode, which it tends to happen in the world that is YouTube and podcasting, we should have Ashley, the movie Oracle, on to talk about that episode, but it is directed by David Orrick McDermott, written by Rod Serling, stars Richard Hayden, Barbara Stewart, and Barney Phillips. So look forward to that, and hopefully look forward to the movie Oracle coming on to talk about that episode, and a few special things that will happen in that episode. So with that said,
such a fun
that is
episode.
good.
One of your favorites. Nick.
Yeah, and the week after, it may or may not be my intro for my video.
It may or may not, or it may or may be.
Who knows?
Exactly.
Only time will tell in the
Right,
Twilight
right.
Zone.
Hey, is the Eye of the Beholder? Is that's the plastic surgery one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
the right
that's a
after the
classic.
Howling Man, actually.
Yeah,
That's one
it is.
right out. Yeah.
That's a
So,
classic.
dude, I'm not joking. We have the Howling Man, Eye of the Beholder, and Nick of Time coming up
Nice.
right after Thinking About Machines. So we're going to be shifting for Chance to Dream straight down that list. Guarantee you.
Oh yeah,
It's staying at number 11 if I have anything to say about it.
you do not.
Don't I?
But what you do have to say, Triv, is where can we find you in your grass that you have next to you? I don't know what you do with it, but your plant.
Oh, well,
Grass.
yeah, that's
Bulb?
just a plant. It's not really grass. But anyway, I love PNGs of plants. Anyway, you can find me and my fake plant and all the other fake things that are in my theater here on YouTube at Trivial Theater. I do a wide variety of movies, and hopefully by the time this releases, I will be coming up on putting out Leprechaun in the Hood. So that'll be the next thing dropping. If it's not out by the time this drops, it'll be out shortly thereafter. And then you can also find me on Twitter at Trivial Theater.
And Jacob, when they want to send you all the perchance of dreams of love to you, where can they find you?
You can find me at Twitter at Red Neville 2. I do stuff over there sometimes, but you can find me over at YouTube at Jacob Anders Reviews. And I've got lots of this week. Actually, when this video comes out, I probably would have released more content in 1 week than I have in a while. I do have some new things coming to my channel. For those of you, if any of you subscribe to my channel, I am going to be having some new cool stuff coming. But for this week, as you're watching this, I will have a couple of reviews I don't want to talk about right now, but that will be coming out by the time you see this. But also one I will talk about that I've been working on a long fucking time that's finally coming out would be I don't know if it's glorious, but the return of my comic book movie review series will get back into the swing of things of being weekly-ish. But finally, I got over the hump that is known as Red Sonja.
Oh, you like her humps. Let's be honest.
I hate that
For
bitch.
hump.
It's actually
Oh, the
already,
lady
as of the
loves.
recording of this episode, it's already uploaded to YouTube. Just nobody could see it yet. But it will be, by the time you are listening and or watching this, it is out there. So please go watch it, because I put in a literal fuck ton of work into that video, more so than I wanted to put into that video, because I had a lot of issues with it. But it's there. I made it.
Yeah.
Didn't want to.
And if you don't go and look at it, Jake will have a psychotic break because of all the work that he put into it. So give it views, give it love, give it likes,
Yeah.
etc.
Sucky movie. Hopefully it's a good video though.
No doubt.
Exactly. And with that said, you can find all my content at Movie Emporium, as well as on Twitter. By the time this episode posted, I will be back to doing a weekly episode TV review, because Westworld season 4 is finally releasing.
Oh, don't do it.
Yeah, it took such a long break after it. Don't ever do 4 episodes of 4 TV shows in a 6-month period or whatever it is I did. But on top of that, I also have Black Phone spoiler discussion review, all that good stuff. Plus, this will pop up on Monday, as it always does. But other than that, just hit us up on the YouTubes and the iTunes and the ambulances and iClouds and
What ambulance?
I don't know, emergencies.
The Michael
and
Bay movies, because we need
Michael
more
Bay
explosions.
and- no.
Michael
I'm
Bay
kidding.
explosions.
I like
Yeah,
explosions.
Google,
Michael Bay explosions.
Exactly. But Google Play and Amazon Music and all that stuff. So
And explosions.
and explosions, as Triv says. But without further ado, for myself, Triv, and Jacob, we will see you next time in the Twilight Zone. Peace out.
Bye. Penis painting.
Adios. Picasso.
Face off.
In good hands.
Not at the moment.
Well, that's probably being that we need to focus on this.
I'll take this places.